The Jordan Harbinger Show is one of the fastest growing indie podcasts in the world, growing to almost 15 million monthly downloads in just 4 years. When I interviewed Jordan, I was shocked to learn that a single marketing tactic was driving almost all of this growth. In this video, I'm gonna show you what this tactic is, why it works, and how you can implement it for your podcast. Early on, Jordan found this single tactic that he could use repeatably to continue to grow his show. And that was to record a podcast trailer and then pay other podcasters to play it on their shows. It's not entirely intuitive why this is so effective. You could think about just running Facebook ads or maybe ads in Google to drive traffic, but these aren't as effective as running ads inside of podcasts. There's two reasons that this tactic works so much better than running ads in Facebook or Google. First, you're reaching the right kind of listeners, people who are already interested in podcasts. Instead of finding a random person and teaching them how to download a podcast app and how to subscribe to a show, you're reaching someone who's actually listening inside of a podcast app already. Second, you're able to target people who are interested in the same topic. So if somebody is trying to advertise a sports podcast, they can find people who are already listening to the top sports shows. Or if you have a true crime podcast, you can target people who are already fans of the same genre. So when you combine these together, you're able to pinpoint the right audience, people who would be really interested in your show who've already listened to podcasts. Now there's two reasons why this traditionally hasn't worked for the smaller indie podcasts. You either need a big budget when you go to the largest shows and ask them to run promos for your podcast, or you're stuck negotiating and searching for the right fit with a smaller show. It's hard to find a show that's small enough you can afford, but also the quality is high enough that you're excited about having your show associated with theirs. So this is why we're launching Buzzsprout Ads. Buzzsprout Ads is the best way to grow your podcast by buying podcast promotions across the 114,000 shows that are active on Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout Ads helps podcasters get their show in front of the right audience, people who are already listening to podcasts and are interested in the same topic as your show. And it's a self-service platform, meaning that you can go and buy an ad when you're ready and turn them off if they don't work perfectly for you.
Love it! Come on, let's go!
And the best part is that Buzzsprout Ads is built for the indie podcaster. You can reach 5,000 new listeners for just $100. But if you're a larger show, we're able to scale for the largest budget. All right, let me show you how it works. Start by going to buzzsprout.com/ads. And this is where you can sign up for an advertiser account to start running promotions on other people's podcasts. When you're ready to run your promo, scroll down and click Start Creating Ads. You can either sign up, or since I already have an account, you can log in to an existing account. Now, this is a show for my friend Botter, who has the Shortbox podcast. It's a podcast about comic books. So we'll create an ad. Now we're pulling in a lot of information because I've already run a few promos for this account, but let's go through each piece so that you know exactly what to put in here to maximize the effectiveness of your podcast promo. At the top, we have the headline. Now this should be probably the podcast title. So the name of his show is The Shortbox, a comic book podcast. Then you have a short space to put in a description about your podcast. And you'll see as we're typing this in, over on the right-hand side, we're actually getting a preview about what this will look like inside other podcast apps. Next up is a headline link. You want this to be the website for your podcast. And last but not least, we're putting in the URLs to your Apple Podcasts and Spotify so that if people are inside of an app, they can click to listen to the show right away. All right, now that everything looks good over here, we can click continue. Next, we need to have an audio file. Now, this is a podcast promotion. Think of it as a trailer for your podcast. It's gonna be between 12 to 40 seconds, and it absolutely cannot include profanity because you wanna make sure that lots of podcasts will want to include this on their shows. Now we are processing that audio file, and it will be ready by the time that we finished everything else. Now we get to decide who we're going to target for this promo. If we're running a promo for a show that that only has listeners in certain demographics, maybe they're under 18 or over 45, we want to match that with the demographics of the podcast we're promoting in. Now, for this show, the optimal audience really is not of a particular age range. Then you can decide if maybe the audience skews heavily male or female, or if there's a certain type of profanity that you're comfortable with on your podcast. So we think of none as being really family-friendly shows. Mild might have occasional cursing, maybe a little bit of raunchy language. Explicit would be there could be almost anything included. So we default to medium, and we think that's a good place for you to be. And last, we're using the categories from your podcast to match you to shows in similar categories. So checking all three of these, we're going to find podcasts that are interested in animation and manga, visual arts, or books. So I'm going to keep all of those selected so I have the best chance to find a great match for my podcast promo. Now click continue, and we get to decide how many podcast downloads we want for this promo. So the more people that we reach, the more likely we are to start gaining quite a few new listeners for our podcast. Now, since I've already run promos for this show, I'm going to go for the lower end. 5,000 downloads for $100. Now, since this podcast is hosted on Buzzsprout, they're actually getting a limited time offer for 30% off their podcast promo. So it's only going to be $70. If you want, you can run even larger promos, and that discount is even greater. All right, so now let's go back and review the ad. We've got all the text, the links. We can make sure that those are perfect, look great, and we can actually listen to the audio file.
Yo, are you a comic book fan, an MCU fanatic, or a self-described pop culture buff? Then you're my kind of people. My name is Barter, and I'm the host of the comic podcast, The Short Box, aka...
All right. This sounds perfect. It's a great podcast promo that includes everything that's important. An introduction to what the podcast is, who it's for, and at the end, make sure you have a call to action to say, click the link in the show notes so that you can check out my podcast. Target audience looks good, and we're comfortable with the price. Now let's click review terms. Click that we've read the privacy policy. You'll be taken to this screen where you can put in your credit card information, and the ad will immediately start matching with appropriate podcasts. Now, since I've already run quite a few ads, I'll show you how that will look once they've been fulfilled. We can click into the podcast and see it was included in 133 different shows. That means 133 different podcasts featured the promo that we recorded for this show. All 10,000 downloads have been served up, and while the ad is running, you'll actually be able to track the progress of the ad over time. We can also review the audio file that we used. This is really valuable if you think some promos were more effective than others, and you can check what was my title and my description, what was the ad promo that people were listening to, so that you can test different things and figure out what works best. And that is Buzzsprout Ads. We're so excited to bring this powerful marketing tactic that's worked for many of the largest shows and bring it to indie podcasters. Even if you aren't hosted on Buzzsprout, you can use Buzzsprout Ads to grow your podcast. But if you are hosted on Buzzsprout, we want to thank you. For a limited time, we're offering 30% off any promo you run through Buzzsprout Ads. Thank you so much for watching. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments or shoot us an email at support. We'd love to help. But until next time, keep podcasting.